We wanted to welcome everyone who signed up for tonight's webinar. This is a really important topic, and we're glad to see there's so much interest in it and have Angelica join us tonight. This is the New Beginnings group. We've had a series of webinars already and an in-person event as well, but we're hoping to bring lots of new topics for you coming up in the next few months. So please let us know how you feel about this topic, if there's other topics that you're interested in. I will do a quick introduction of myself and then pass it off so you could hear from each of the panelists. I'm Kate Morneau. I am a collaborative divorce attorney and mediator. My practice is in Nashua. And I could say from my experience, this topic, I'm personally very interested in hearing what Angelica has to offer, because I hear about narcissism and parenting almost on a daily basis. It is a huge, huge issue. And I know for hopefully we get some good questions at the end, but I've got a few tips as far as that goes as well from a legal perspective. So I'm sure Angelica will help us out with understanding how to do co-parenting in an effective way as much as you can in this situation. So I'll pass this off to Laura to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Happy to have you all here. My name is Laura Gamache with Gamache Real Estate Group of Keller Williams. I'm licensed in all of New Hampshire and Massachusetts, along with kind of what Kate mentioned. So dealing with a lot of clients that are needing to sell their properties because of the divorce, and having to really navigate handling both parties, husband and wife, as they're going through this, and the challenges that it can really be, because it can be very emotional for one party more than the other. So navigating different behaviors can be very challenging. So very excited to hear what Angelica has to say and have this bring to you all. Have worked with many of divorce situations, work very closely with a lot of attorneys, CPAs, CFPs, mortgage lenders. So we work together and collaborate, all of us that's here on your screens tonight, because it really takes a village to kind of really get through a lot of the challenges that this brings. So thank you all for being here, and I'll introduce you to Barbara next.
Hi, I'm Barb Shigog. I am more of the finance person that's part of our team. I am a CDFA and a CPA, so I'm the real numbers guru. And probably the biggest problem when dealing with a narcissist and co-parenting is dealing with a narcissist on the financial side. So I'm really excited to hear what Angelica has to say, and want to be able to help women as they navigate divorce pre and during, and then post divorce. I hand them over to Robin. So I'll hand you over now to Robin to tell you a little bit more about herself.
Thanks for coming tonight. We're so excited to have you here. So yes, I help women when they're ready to sort of break those binds of having their ex-spouse control their finances, and really want to gain that confidence and clarity about their own financial future so that they can make good financial decisions moving forward. So whether that's, on the investment side, or, just planning for your retirement, any of those things, I help women kind of move forward in that regard. So I'm a CFP, over 30 years in the business, and really have training on both the personal life planning side of things and the financial side to help with the emotional aspects. So I'm going to give you over to Renee next, who helps our clients with mortgages.
Thanks, Robin. Welcome, everybody. I'm Renee Guidaboni. I am a mortgage lender, residential mortgage lender. I'm also a CDFA, which is a certified divorce lending professional, and most of my clients are going through divorces, and so I help them understand the numbers, what their options are as far as existing mortgages or new mortgages. My experience with my clients that are dealing with narcissists, I find the women that I'm working with have been told that they would never qualify for a mortgage. They would never be able to, have their own things in life. And so I am very happy to be participating in tonight's event. And I want to introduce you all to Angelica. Angelica is a toxic relationship expert with a master's degree in clinical psychology and has spent nearly a decade researching and educating others about narcissism and toxic relationships. She has guided hundreds of individuals to break free from toxic dynamics and navigate the complexities of high conflict divorces and parenting agreements. Drawing from both her professional and personal experiences within the family court system, Angelica offers a unique perspective that empowers others to reclaim their strength, heal, and move forward. And today's presentation is going to be on the challenges of divorcing a narcissist. So I'm happy to introduce Angelica. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Renee. I'm excited to be here. And just so you all know, I've also been in your position. I was with a narcissist. I'm going to share that with you right now and how you can get out and keep your peace. So I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, can everyone see? Are we good, Renee? Can you see?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so how to stay in your power and come out stronger, just like I did. So I know you just got the introduction. I'll give you a little more detail. So I was with a narcissist when I was getting my master's degree. And I was in, a clinical psychology program at an Ivy League college. And I had never even heard of narcissism, and I was almost done with my program. And I, had kind of an explosion of toxicity with my now ex, and he was court ordered to attend therapy. And I highly recommend that if you can somehow get in your agreement that your ex, if he's a narcissist, needs to be in therapy, that would go a long way. So he goes to therapy. And at this point, we hadn't ended our relationship yet. So he came home and he was laughing about his session with his psychiatrist. And I asked, what was going on? And he said that the psychiatrist gave him definitions of 3 different personality disorders. So one might have been borderline personality, the other bipolar personality, and then the other one was narcissistic personality disorder. And he said that the psychiatrist told him the definitions of all of them. And he said, which one do you think you are? Now, he didn't say the name of the disorder. And my ex chose number 3, and that happened to be narcissistic personality disorder. So he kind of diagnosed himself. And then the psychiatrist said, yeah, I think so too. And so he came home and told me this. And of course, I get right on my phone researching what is NPD. And that's how my entire career really started. So I hadn't really yet decided what I was going to focus on in clinical psychology, but I joke that my ex gave me a career. So he was diagnosed, and in parenting with a narcissist, it's really hard to co-parent. Like, I don't think there's really any part of togetherness when you're parenting with a narcissist. It's really parallel parenting. So you are both, parallel. You're here, he or she is here, and you're doing the parenting side by side. But there really is no togetherness when it comes to parenting with a narcissist. I too have been through the family court system, so I understand everything about choosing a divorce attorney, going to court, getting restraining orders if it's needed, looking out for the kids, parental alienation. We'll talk about that stuff in the next couple of slides. But I just want you to know that I've been in your position, and that's why I'm so passionate about doing this work, because when I went through it 8 years ago, like I said, no one was talking about narcissism back then. I didn't even know what it was in a clinical psychology program. And I didn't really have support. I got a lot of bad advice from therapists and psychologists. because again, they didn't know any better. So it's really not their fault, but it's very important to find a specialist. And that's how I got onto this path. From the beginning of having my daughter, who's now 7.5, I lived separately from my partner. So she was born and we were living separately. So I've done the single mom thing from the time I became a mother. And, I say in here, it was some of the best years of my life. After the bad parts, dealing with the narcissist, which still comes up to this day, I really learned to embrace being a single mom, which was very hard at first. I was ashamed that I was having a baby and I wasn't even living with my partner. And I had this fairy tale in my mind of what it was supposed to look like. But once I actually allowed myself to heal and enjoy just it being the two of us, they were really the best years of my life. And now I'm in a new relationship and, we're expecting a baby in March. It's a healthy, loving relationship. And I really do think it's from taking that time with my daughter, just the two of us for 4.5 years, or maybe even a little longer. I mean, really 7.5 years of single, like just the two of us. But taking that time for myself to heal and just be with my daughter, and then finally opening myself up to a healthy relationship. And that can be your happily ever after also. So I just want you to give you a little hope that you can go from the worst time of your life to the best. So what you're going to learn today is, I'm sure you already read this, but the mistakes that can cost you thousands and hours of your sanity and what to do instead. How to outsmart the narcissist at his own game. How to choose a lawyer who has the skill set and expertise to represent you against an actual narcissist. They're not all the same. The subtle red flags that the narcissist is playing you and how to stay vigilant. And how to come out of this divorce on top and to move on from the chaos, just like I did. And, you can ask questions in the end, just maybe write them down and I'll answer them at the end. So the first step is finding a skilled lawyer. So you need to, when you go on a consultation, I recommend going to the paid consultations and going to the free consultations. I wouldn't recommend hiring someone based on whether they're cheaper. You don't ever want to hire someone based on whether they're the cheapest. So do they listen to your story and take an interest in your case? Now, you may have already hired a lawyer, but you could always switch lawyers. So, this still applies to you. Now, you need to ask them what the realistic outcomes are for your case. They don't have a crystal ball, so they're not going to know exactly what's going to happen, but they've had cases like yours, I'm sure, in the past, so they can give you a realistic expectation. There are some attorneys who will tell you what you want to hear, you hire them, and then you're going to end up unhappy with the outcome because, they didn't want to tell you no, or they wanted you to hire them. So not just what you want to hear, but the actual realistic outcome. And then another thing to think about is many attorneys have associates. So it's not only them working at the firm, they might have somebody below them or their assistant. So I've seen my own clients, they think they're hiring a top attorney, somebody who really gets it. They sit down with them in the consultation, and then they hire the firm, excuse me, and the associate ends up representing them instead of the attorney that they consulted with. So I want you to make sure that you get it in writing who's actually representing you, even if you do meet with the top person at the firm in your consultation, make sure that they're actually going to be representing you. So it's not always the case, and I've seen it many, many times now. Are they well versed on the games that a narcissist plays? So your attorney needs to understand all the games, all the manipulation, they need to be one step ahead of the narcissist and whomever is representing the narcissist in court. So they need to know that, a narcissist might decide he's going to settle the day before court, and they need to be one step ahead. which is very common for a narcissist to do. They push, they push, they push, they say no. And then the day before you go to court, they want to settle. So just making sure your attorney knows a narcissist like the back of their hand. Ask the lawyer how they will convey to the judge that your ex is manipulative. Because as you know, a narcissist is a wolf in sheep's clothing. And many times they're charismatic, they come off, really confident, and they're people, they're not people pleasers, but they please the crowd. So how is your lawyer going to show the judge that, there's a lot more beneath the surface than what they're actually seeing? Also asking the attorney that you're consulting with, what can they actually share about your judge? I've had many clients who have hired a top attorney in Boston, but they're in, say, the North Shore. And sometimes that top attorney in Boston does not know the judges and how they might rule in Essex County. So it's not always best to hire the top attorney in whatever city that you hear is good. You need to know whether that attorney knows the judge and how that person, sees custody cases. Some judges strongly believe that both parents, even if the parent is a narcissist, should have 50-50 parenting time. So it would be helpful to know going into court whether that's one of those judges, so that you can be strategic in how you present your case, and again, be realistic about what you're going in with. Are they going to advocate for you? So many times, again, attorneys, there are some amazing attorneys and there are some attorneys that aren't so great, just like therapists, amazing, not so great. So are they actually going to advocate for you? Or are they going to just encourage you to settle and not want to do like the work that it takes to actually advocate for you? You also want to turn an attorney who's, again, a shark, but a reasonable shark, somebody who's within reason, who's not going to be combative. Also asking your attorney what's their plan for your case. We're almost done with this section, but this is very, very important about hiring the right attorney. So asking the attorney, what's their standard for communicating with you? Are you going to be charged for every single phone call, every single email communication? That's pretty standard. So it wouldn't be surprising if the answer was yes, but it's good for you to know. What type of documentation do they need from you? You'll usually need to write an affidavit. You'll need history and records. We'll get into the documentation in a little bit, but just asking them what they need from you. What's their retainer? And do they have a client portal? Like, this is not necessary. My attorney has a client portal for me where all of our messages and all the documentation was just kept in a portal. My last attorney didn't have it. I was with her for 7 years and it was fine. So it's not totally necessary, but it's kind of an added bonus. And it's something that you could ask about. I'll definitely get to the questions if you have any questions. So here's what not to do. Don't hire an attorney based on how nice they are. This is huge. You want somebody, again, who's going to advocate for you. You're not looking for somebody to give you emotional support. You can get that from a therapist, a relationship coach, someone like me who can help you with the strategy and the parenting plan and that's what the attorney will help you with too. But I can help you with, text, what to say back in the text messages, and also the emotional support. That's my role, or a therapist's role, or a psychologist. That's not what your attorney is hired for. So don't hire somebody based on them being nice, because you might not have the best outcome in terms of them standing up to your ex's attorney, because many times narcissists hire those bulldozing attorneys that, they're not there to be reasonable. So you don't want somebody to be afraid of that, your ex's attorney, and then, settle and agree to everything that they want. Again, like I said, don't hire somebody who's extremely combative. Like, you don't want to be spending thousands and thousands of dollars just for there not to be any resolution for whatever your problem is. And okay, this is a really big one. Don't hire based on your networking group recommendations. Now, I honestly hate to say this because I'm in many networking groups myself, but I've seen it many, many times where somebody will ask, you know, who's the best attorney to divorce a narcissist? And people will respond, but they haven't actually been represented by that attorney. So they're recommending them because, you know, they know them or they're friends with them, or they see them in the group, but they've never actually hired them. So I would highly recommend hiring based on personal recommendations. So I recommend attorneys that I've either known, like my client worked with them and they won the case, or I recommend people who I've actually hired as an attorney. The very few times that I've recommended people based on those networking recommendations, I've regretted it because my clients have come to me saying, oh, that wasn't the best attorney. She, you know, settled, or she didn't advocate for me. And then I feel like a jerk because I didn't really know, because I just gave the advice based on what I saw in the group. So if you are asking anyone for advice, I would recommend saying, who's the best attorney to divorce a narcissist who you have actually hired? That's what I recommend doing. Okay. Here's what you should do. You should switch attorneys if you aren't happy. You should hire, like I just said, hire based on your personal experience. If you also, like, if you have a consultation with someone and you have a good vibe, hire that person. You know, you can base it off your true instincts as well. And just a side note on that, regarding trusting your instincts. If you've been with a narcissist, you likely have learned not to trust your instincts because of the gaslighting that you've endured, because of the person constantly lying to you and causing you to doubt yourself. So one thing that you really need to practice is learning what your instinct actually is. Like, how do you know what your instinct is? And then trusting your instinct. And what I say to my own clients is, I usually ask them, okay, like, what does your instinct say? And they usually tell me what their instinct says. And then I don't say trust your instinct, because duh. What I say instead is, have you ever regretted trusting your instinct? And all of them say no. So that's the answer. Trust your instinct always. Here's the number one fact to remember about narcissists. Narcissists have a thinking disorder. That is the most basic way of explaining narcissism in a nutshell. So many times my clients will come to me saying, and I experienced this too back in the day when I didn't know as much about narcissism and didn't research narcissism, but they often say to me, like, he or she, you know, I explain this and, you know, like, it just doesn't compute for them, or, you know, they talk circles, or I'm sure you know all the behaviors, but they're very illogical. And that's the thing you need to remember. Narcissism is a thinking disorder. There is literally a wire broken in their brains. So you cannot be logical with them. You cannot go to them with logic and expect them to get it. Even if they did get it, narcissists are on a mission to prove you wrong. So they're not going to take accountability, and they're not going to admit any wrongdoing. So remembering, thinking disorder, and they are illogical. And the last thing is, you could think to yourself about arguing with a toddler. Sometimes you just have to say to yourself when you're arguing with a toddler, okay, like, whatever, in your mind, of course. Don't say it out loud, especially to a narcissist. But in your mind, like, okay, whatever, like, just letting it go, because you know there's not going to be any positive outcome. And this, save your sanity with blanket statements. So these are statements that are going to shut down a conversation. So here's some examples that I use and I tell my clients to use too. So your recollection of events differs greatly from mine. So that's when you're arguing with the narcissist and he or she is telling you something that you did or something that happened that's completely false. Instead of arguing and getting defensive and explaining what actually happened, this is something that you should say. The next one is, I have no right to control how you see me. That's when the narcissist is saying how terrible you are, you're a terrible mother, whatever, you're lazy, you're this, you're that. I have no right to control how you see me. Again, we're not trying to piss off the narcissist, but that will kind of piss them off, but they won't continue to torment you because you're shutting down the conversation. So you're outsmarting them essentially when you say something like that. Again, they're like ranting to you. You say, I hear your perspective. Again, I hear your perspective. Never saying something different, always saying the same thing over and over again. I hear your perspective. Okay, yep, got it. Just always a blanket statement. That's going to shut down conflict. I accept that this is how you feel. Again, them ranting about something that you did wrong or something negative. I accept that this is how you feel. And then of course, you've given me a lot to think about when they're ranting, when they're asking for something, you've given me a lot to think about. Shut down the conversation. So your superpowers are being nonchalant, matter of fact, calm, cool, and collected, unruffled, so no one's going to ruffle your feathers, indifferent, and just boring. Like, yawn, you're so boring. That's exactly what a narcissist hates. They want to get a rise out of you. And here's a kind of a funny story, and this happened just last weekend. So my current partner, who's healthy, secure, healthy relationship, I forget even what it was, but we were having like a little tiff, it wasn't an argument, but just a tiff. And he said to me, why are you always so nonchalant about everything? You're just so matter of fact. And that was one of his complaints about how I was being. And this light bulb went off in my head. And I said to him, don't you understand? Being nonchalant was a survival mechanism for me being with my ex. That is what saved me. I would say, quite frankly, saved my life, because my ex, he would threaten violence at times too. So being nonchalant saved my life, and it also saved my sanity, because if I was nonchalant, first of all, there was nothing really to get, excited about for him, because conflict, as I'm sure you know, excites a narcissist. If you react to them, they are going to be the happiest person on earth. So being nonchalant really will save your own sanity, and it will completely shut down the conflict. So, it even comes in handy down the road, obviously when you're in a healthy relationship, if you ever want to be with someone else, it will come in handy for even healthy conflict. So something really important is documenting. I'm sure you've heard this a million times about divorce, but I really can learn from my own mistakes, because I'm also going through something right now in court and personally. And something that I was kicking myself about was, years ago, I would write things like, 3 days ago, so-and-so did X, Y, Z. And then I'd have to, but the entry would be say 9/27 of 2018. And then I'd have to go back and be well, what date was 3 days before? And it really, it was a lot of hours of looking up the text messages and the dates. So do yourself a favor, learn from my past mistake and just put the date on everything. Don't just say 3 days ago, say 3 days ago on the 21st of September. Use a Google Doc or a notes tab for all your documentation. So I use a Google Doc. I like that because I can access it on my computer, on my phone, like literally wherever someone else's computer, if I just log into my email. That's what I like about the Google Doc, whereas I couldn't really do that in my notes tab. I have categories for my documentation. So medical stuff. So like if your ex was ever to say that you were like neglecting your child or anything like that, you know, have that documentation in the medical category. Educational arguments or just anything that comes up educationally wise, like, oh, they didn't attend the parents' night, put that in the educational section. And then general conflict is another section. And payment. So say you bring your child to the dentist and you pay like for it in full or something, or you pay the copay and it's $100. Document the date and document the date that you requested payment from your ex. And then of course, like if they actually paid you or, and even if they do pay you, document when, because in my agreement, for example, my ex is supposed to pay me within 7 days of me telling him the amount that the dentist cost. If he doesn't, then that's documented that, you know, he paid me 3 months later. And then if we were to go to court about something related to medical, I can show like, okay, well, wait, I requested payment. He never paid it. You know, it took 3 months. So definitely have the categories. I find that that's much easier to manage, and especially to go back for if you need to write an affidavit, you can just see everything right there. Obviously, make sure your ex doesn't have any passwords where they can access these notes. And then of course, keep any receipts. I just have a little envelope that I keep in my desk, and everything that I pay for my daughter that he is supposed to reimburse me for, I just put the receipt in the envelope. Parenting, more parenting plan tips. So keep all the documentation, even if things seem to be going well. Like, this is huge. I can't tell you how many times I've worked with people who have said, you know, it seems to be going well. Like there hasn't been drama in 3 months, or there hasn't been drama in a year. And then, you know, they feel like they don't need to keep all that documentation based on the past, the bad stuff, the heavy stuff, emotionally heavy stuff. They get rid of it, and then all hell breaks loose, and they don't have any of that documentation. So, you know, keep it somewhere, like in a filing cabinet is where I keep it, and just always hold on to it. I have all the documentation from, you know, 8 years ago, and we've had, you know, occasional good years, but I've kept all the documentation. So, include as much detail as you can in the parenting plan. So don't just write like every other year on even years, the mother gets the children on the holidays, and the odd year the father does. Make sure you write what day and time you are exchanging the child. I can't tell you how many times I have seen vague parenting plans where you have to keep going back to a guardian ad litem, going back to lawyers, court. So just have it all spelled out, especially with a narcissist, because you have to remember, they're not going to play fair to you. You know, you're a reasonable person. So, you know, to you, you'll do the fair thing. A narcissist isn't going to do that. So you need to have literally everything spelled out. I highly recommend, if you're going to be receiving child support, to go through the DOR. And not do direct deposit. Now, many times people will say, well, like, the DOR is a pain, you know, they miss payments, or, you know, whatever. People complain about the DOR. I highly disagree, especially when dealing with a narcissist. When I was going through this 8 years ago, my ex was adamant that he was going to do direct deposit. Well, guess what? That became a way of of having control over me because he would stop the direct deposit. So don't even go there. Don't even allow that to happen for you not to get paid and for him to have this control over you. Go through the DOR. I've been through the DOR for 7 years and they've never missed a payment. So highly recommend. Also, you can communicate on 2 apps. One is called the Our Family Wizard. The other one is App Close. App Close is free, so I recommend using that one. I've used both of them. That's just, you can also click for App Close. I don't know if Our Family Wizard still has this, but for App Close, it will say, like, is this being used for court? You can click yes, and everything will be used as documentation in the app. Communication with your ex, the payments that you request, when he or she might pay them. So everything in there you can use in court for documentation. So I highly recommend using an app like that. Plus, Our Family Wizard, I don't know if App Close has this, but it will show you like when a message is like, it has like levels. So green is like, okay, that's reasonable to send. But if it's red, like, you should edit your message. So we all know, narcissists can be very inflammatory, but for us too, sometimes dealing with a narcissist can get the best of us. I'm not perfect. I know you all aren't perfect. Sometimes when they say something, we get triggered. We want to type something we're going to regret. So the Our Family Wizard app will notify you like, oh, you might want to edit this. So that's one nice feature on that one. Please remember, if the narcissist suddenly starts behaving nicely, you should be suspicious. You should not think that things are going well all of a sudden. Even if things are going well for a year, in the back of your mind, you should always be suspicious and expecting, something to happen. I mean, it's kind of it's an unfortunate way to live, but don't really let it own you. Just in the back of your mind, always know, like, okay, this is a narcissist I'm dealing with. So they're likely trying to manipulate me, and they will do this for years to get their way. So never fall for the nice behavior. Always default to your lawyer when it comes to making like major decisions. So oftentimes a narcissist will not like the proposition of your attorney or you and your attorney, and they'll try to make out a deal with you, just you. And so they might say to you like, oh, like, let's have a quick phone call and like, we'll resolve this in 10 minutes and then we don't need to go through attorneys. Just always say back to them, I'd rather go through my attorney, or I'd rather us go through our attorneys. I'm going to go through my attorney. Just always default to your attorney, especially with a narcissist. Keep everything in writing. Like I said in the documentation, everything needs to be in writing. Anything that you notify them about that you're supposed to legally needs to be in writing. You can't say I told them on the phone, even if you did. It needs to be in writing. And then last, you are a good person. They will use that against you and try to guilt trip you. Now is your time to have strong, healthy boundaries and without guilt. And here's how to reach me if you would like to have a consultation. I offer free consultations. I provide, I can review your parenting plan and give any suggestions that you might be missing. I can help people with the emotional turmoil of going through a divorce, or even if you're not ready to have a divorce yet, but you're still contemplating leaving, I can support you with that. So, and if you're not sure if I can help you, you can feel free to still send me a text or email. This is my website, breakthroughloveyourlife.com. You can take a look and I'd be happy to support you in any way. I am complete.
Yes, so I feel like if people have questions, you can use the Q&A feature to jump in. That was great, Angelica. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Fantastic. We did have one question, and it was, what is the DOR?
Great question. Department of Revenue. So they will manage all the child support. They can actually garnish your ex's wages. So you don't even need to deal with child support. The DOR communicates with your ex's place of employment. They actually deduct your child support amount straight from his paycheck, and it goes right into your account. So highly recommend. They'll give you that option when you get divorced.
There was a lot of talk about attorneys, Kate. I'm wondering if you have anything to add to all of that.
Yeah, I loved how much you're talking about attorneys because it is such an important process, and a good attorney can make all the difference. I know there's some attorneys that almost like fuel the fire, right, with a narcissist, and they find each other, and it's so frustrating because it's difficult to really get through any type of situation when you have another person who's now a lawyer fighting that fight. And being that kind of mouthpiece for what you've dealt with. So having an attorney that, yes, that understands the games, that has seen the behaviors, it's a pattern. I mean, it's so funny. I hear the same story and I'm like, I literally just heard that an hour ago. It's so interesting how you can predict, a lot of what they're going to do, what they're going to say, and get ahead of it. So yeah, really some really great advice in there, Angelica. And I mimic a lot of what you said too about the parenting apps. So Our Family Wizard, App Close, those are great ways to keep the boundaries from letting them kind of seep into your world and into your text messages. And they even have a video feature in Our Family Wizard now where you could track, I think there's some people have played games with, well, I tried to call the kids, but she didn't answer. Well, Our Family Wizard will track, here's exactly when you tried to call and here's exactly when she answered. And it's really, they've thought a lot about the problems that we've faced and how to solve a lot of those issues. So yeah, great tips.
One tip that I'll actually add on top of that, which I didn't address, is, as many of you know, narcissists will try to fuel the fire. They'll try to get a reaction out of you. Something I did a few years ago was in Gmail, I made a folder and it said my ex's name. And I set it up so that his emails actually bypassed my inbox and just went straight to this little folder. And that really helped a lot because this was at a time where he was being really inflammatory and I was feeling really anxious to open my inbox. Like, what is going to be in there this time? Yeah. Now, or even starting 3 years ago, I don't even see his emails unless I choose to go to that folder on Gmail and open it and see what he has for me. So I highly recommend doing something like that.
Awesome. We have another question. How often are you seeing that those in a narcissistic relationship are in therapy?
Interestingly, well, it's hard to tell because most of the people who I work with are coming to me for therapy. So I would say all of them because they come to me for therapy. But I would say they're mostly coming once things have become so bad that they can't turn back. Like the pain point has gotten so intense that they can't turn back. So, some of them haven't actually filed for divorce yet, but they're contemplating it. But, I do know many, many people just from my presence on Facebook and on Instagram, where I share tips about toxic relationships, which I didn't put on here, but I can share on my Instagram. I know a lot of those people aren't in therapy and definitely should be in therapy because it can help a lot. Like it helped. I mean, I did my own therapy on my own self to get out of my toxic relationship, but it could be sped up if you hire a professional. Hopefully that answered. If it didn't, just feel free to ask a follow-up question.
Mm-hmm. And we've got another legal one here, although it's saying Massachusetts, but Kate, maybe you can chime in. Do you have any particular recommendations for filing for support in Massachusetts? I'm completely under his financial control and have zero access to my own funds. Recommendations on how to proceed with that variable at play.
I don't practice in Massachusetts, so I don't really know what separate support is. If that's a term for something. I mean, in New Hampshire, we've got child support, we've got alimony. And also I get if you're asking for how to kind of start that process when you don't have access to funds. I know that a lot of attorneys could say we'll file a petition for divorce. We'll ask for access to some marital funds in order to fund your divorce. So I filed that recently and I'm waiting to hear back because it doesn't happen very often, but the judges don't want you to go on without an attorney. So I don't know, again, if that's helpful because I'm not in Mass.
I could provide some resources for pro bono work. If you want to email me or text me, I am associated with some organizations who they kind of provide like a lawyer of the day or pro bono lawyer for people who qualify. So one center is the Jenny Geiger Center in Amesbury, Mass, and for whomever needs it, but you can definitely reach out to me and I can help support you.
Awesome. And we have another question for Angelica. Have you ever had to counsel a narcissist?
Yes. I wouldn't say it's okay. When it's impossible is when a couple comes in wanting to work on things. Usually the non-narcissist wants to work on things. And that's when I feel like it's really impossible because the narcissist is usually just wanting to convince me, which is impossible because I know narcissists like the back of my hand, that the other one is crazy. So it usually doesn't work out well when they come in as a couple, but I have had one person who he had narcissistic traits. I wouldn't say he was someone who was diagnosed with NPD, but he came in saying that, he's had a failed relationship after failed relationship. He met someone he really wanted to be with and, wanted my help keeping that relationship. The thing is, while that person made progress, their narcissistic traits and their past childhood trauma will always resurface. It's always going to resurface. So they're always going to have selfish tendencies, even if they're trying really, really hard. And so that's what is important to know. Even if a narcissist is in therapy, they're likely still going to have a very one-sided relationship because it's always going to be about them at the end of the day.
Awesome. Let's see any other questions. Oh, wait a minute, maybe one more. Are there any ways to divorce a narcissist, keep it civil somehow, and limit their emotional accessibility to the non-narcissist?
Can you read the last part?
Yep, sorry. Are there any ways to divorce a narcissist, keep it civil somehow, and limit their emotional accessibility to the non-narcissist?
Well, I wouldn't say it's impossible. I think, it's all about you at the end of the day, how you show up to the divorce, how you show up to conversations with the narcissist. A lot of the work in becoming, I would say, powerful from powerless in this narcissistic dynamic is actually about you and how you show up. So I would say, yes, it is possible because I'm currently doing it. And I'd be happy to have a free consultation if you want to, just like no pressure to work together or anything, but just to see how you might be able to do that. Because I would say it is possible, but it's really in your hands for the most part, and how you show up, and the boundaries that you.
So I imagine that gaining some insight, control over the financial picture before, if you're the one divorcing, before you sort of have that conversation would be really important.
Yeah.
Sort of gaining your power around. So either it's working with someone like Barb, or just even under, sort of taking an inventory and gaining access to accounts and records. I don't know if you could talk a little bit about what you've seen and the difference that makes in someone's life.
Yeah, so it's, sorry, I'm just getting my charger, my computer. Okay, so it's definitely important, I would say, if you haven't filed for divorce yet, definitely talking to a financial advisor, going into your bank accounts, checking your credit, and seeing like what you're up against, because many times people like the narcissist or the toxic person has your name on accounts and you have no idea.
Right.
Oftentimes they're going to go drain the bank account and lock you out. And if you're a stay-at-home parent, you're in a tough situation if you don't have any family to support you. So it's really important, if you haven't filed yet, to kind of get all your ducks in a row and get legal advice, have a consultations with the different attorneys. Don't necessarily hire the first attorney that you meet. Get consultations, see how they would recommend that you move forward, meet with a financial advisor. Because a narcissist, again, they're going to play dirty. Yeah. And they're not looking out for you. If anything, if you're the one that's divorcing, proposing the divorce, you're going to be the devil in their eyes, and they will do everything in their power to win and make you lose and suffer. So you really have to, don't count on them thinking that, seeing all the good in you, because once you divorce them, they will see no good in you, even if you're a very good person, which I'm sure you are.
I don't see any other questions in the Q&A. If anybody else wants to type in their question, we can get to it. We have a few more minutes.
The webinar was recorded, and so you'll get a copy of it after the webinar, probably tomorrow, I think. So you can expect that in your inbox. And then if you need to contact Angelica, she gave her contact information, but if you didn't catch it, feel free to just respond to one of the emails that you had, and we can get that to you.
Okay. No more questions.
So we do this monthly, or approximately monthly. And so we have another one coming up in October and then one in November. That will also be on the email following this webinar tonight. So mark your calendar. There's a lot of good information coming up in the coming months. So we'd love to see you again.
And just a special thank you again to Angelica. Such an important topic. Mm-hmm. And having your assistance through a process, as speaking from the attorney, is huge. Really, everyone is going to need that support. So thank you so much for offering that.